This is a passive DI box. DI boxes are most commonly used to connect high impedance instruments, like electric guitars, to low impedance inputs, such as those found on a mixer or audio interface. But what if I told you that a passive DI box can also serve as a basic reamp box? Well, first you may ask, what is a reamp box? So let me quickly answer that question, and then I'll show you how you can use a simple passive DI box to solve everyday problems that come up in the studio and in live sound. As you'll see in this video, a reamp box isn't much different from a passive DI box. When reamping a signal, there are some advantages of using a reamp box, such as level control, connectivity, etc. But if you're in a pinch, you can potentially use a passive DI where you would normally use a reamp box. Both of these devices have transformers inside that convert between high and low impedance, as I mentioned before. At any distance, this is important when connecting a high Z source to a low Z input. However, it's even more important when you need to run the output of a signal from an instrument like an electric guitar over a long distance. And that's because the connection between a DI box and the mic input on a mixer will be balanced, allowing it to reject noise that is picked up along the way. A reamp box has the opposite intention, to convert the signal from a low Z output of a mixer or audio interface to a signal more suitable for the high Z input on a guitar amplifier. In a basic system, using the devices as intended, you could connect an electric guitar to a DI box, connect the low Z output of the DI box to the input of the mixer with an XLR cable, connect the through connection on the DI to a guitar amplifier nearby with an instrument cable. Then that direct signal from the DI box could be recorded and played back through the output of the interface connected to the amplifier via a reamp box. This setup allows for reamping, where the same musical performance can be played through various effects and amplifier settings without the need to perform the piece again each time. Though you would miss out on a few advantages unique to reamp boxes, you could swap out the reamp box in this scenario for a passive DI box. However, you would need to connect the DI box in reverse. The output of the interface would run into the output of the DI box using an XLR female to XLR female adapter. Then the input of the DI box would be connected to the amplifier's input. Note that the signal is passing through the passive DI box in reverse, so the intended output is now the input, and the intended input is now the output. So if you thought you couldn't experiment with reamping due to the lack of a reamp box, now you know that you can try reamping as long as you have a passive DI box and some adapters. In addition to this typical use of a reamp box, picture this scenario. You want to record a band with drums and guitar, but you want to keep the guitar amplifier in a different room to better isolate the guitar from the drums. At the same time, you want to keep the musicians in the same room so they feel comfortable enough to perform at their best. So what do? Well, the drummer has to be in the same room as the drums for obvious reasons. And this means the guitarist will need to stand in that room as well. If you tried to connect the guitarist's guitar directly to the amplifier in another room with a simple instrument cable, you'd probably hear a lot of noise in the guitar amplifier, as well as a muffled tone due to the length of the cable. This assumes the cable length is more than about 15 feet or 4.5 meters. There are two other ways you could connect the guitar rig so that the guitarist can be in a room separated from the guitar cabinet without introducing any additional latency with the DAW. The first solution is to keep the amp head in the room with the guitarist and run a long speaker cable from the amp head to the cabinet in the next room. Of course, this only works if you're using a guitar rig in which the head and cabinet are separated. If you're using a combo amp, we can use a pair of DI boxes, knowing what we now know about what they do and how they work in reverse. The guitarist could connect the guitar to the input of a passive DI box in the room. The output of that DI box could then be run to the room with the combo amp via a long XLR cable. Then the other end of that cable could be connected to the output of another DI box using an XLR female to XLR female adapter. Finally, connecting the input of the DI box to the amp will provide a low impedance balanced connection from room to room. In the next video that's on your screen now, we'll take a closer look at this concept of reamping, one of the most fun and powerful techniques in mixing. I'll see you there.